Number 7. Gareth Pursehouse. Los Angeles police were dispatched to a home in West Hollywood in the early hours of February the 15th of 2020 after they'd received reports of a woman screaming. When officers arrived, they came upon 38-year-old marriage and family therapist Amy Harwick lying unconscious on the ground below the house's third-floor balcony. She'd been left badly injured after an apparent fall, and upon being taken to the hospital, she was pronounced dead. The ensuing police investigation determined that on the night of her death, Harwick had been strangled and thrown from the balcony after being ambushed by her ex-boyfriend, Gareth Pursehouse. The victim had previously filed multiple restraining orders against the man, whom she accused of inflicting repeated physical abuse during the course of their relationship. The day after Harwick was killed, Pursehouse was taken into custody on charges of murder with the special circumstance of lying in wait, breaking and entering, and home burglary. He posted his $2 million bail and was released, then rearrested a couple of months later after entering a not guilty plea. Purshouse's preliminary hearing date was originally set to take place in the summer of 2020, but after a series of delays and postponements, the proceedings were rescheduled for October the 25th of 2022. Number 6. Larissa Schuster. In 2002, California couple Tim and Larissa Schuster went through an acrimonious divorce process that involved fighting over the custody of their son Tyler, as well as the splitting of their joint assets. Larissa was ultimately awarded primary custody of Tyler, while her estranged husband was forced to move into a condominium in Clovis. At some point during the summer of 2002, the woman allegedly told a friend of hers, "I want my husband dead. You don't understand. I could do it and get away with it." Her sinister remarks foreshadowed the events of July the 9th of 2003, when Larissa and her co-worker, James Fagon, lured Tim from his condo before using chloroform and a stun gun to incapacitate him. The woman and her accomplice then disposed of the victim's unconscious body in a 55-gallon barrel filled with hydrochloric acid in an attempt to dissolve his remains. Despite their efforts to erase evidence of the crime, Larissa immediately became the focus of Clovis Police's investigation into Tim's sudden disappearance. Investigators eventually interviewed Fagon, who openly revealed the grisly details of Tim's murder when pressed by detectives. Larissa was arrested at St. Louis Airport while on vacation with her son. Both she and Fagon were charged with kidnapping and first-degree murder. Following their trials, they each received life sentences without the possibility of parole. Number 5. Patrick Morris Simmons. On the morning of March the 15th of 2022, Minnesota police were sent to a St. Paul shipping warehouse on the 1700 block of Wynn Avenue for a report of a woman on fire. Responding officers found 44-year-old Kelly Goodamont in critical condition after having sustained severe burns all over her body. Paramedics pronounced her dead at the scene a short time later. Investigators quickly identified the victim's ex-boyfriend as their prime suspect. 47-year-old Patrick Morris Simmons was located a short distance from his home in Bloomington, which had been set ablaze. He was initially arrested on arson charges, but then transported to the St. Paul Police Department as part of the homicide investigation into Goodamont's death. It subsequently emerged that the woman had been stabbed in the neck before being doused with gasoline and set alight by Simmons, who later called her a witch to detectives. He further indicated that he'd carried out the brutal attack on his ex to stand up for the babies being killed and sacrificed with witchcraft. Simmons also explained that he'd burned his own house down because there had been paranormal activity going on inside. In May of 2022, the man was found incompetent to stand trial for second-degree murder, and his next court hearing was scheduled for November. Number 4. Eric Bretz. In September of 2018, after posting a picture of herself in a black spaghetti-strapped tank top to Instagram, college student Melissa Gentz was viciously attacked by her socialite boyfriend. The 22-year-old woman, a Brazilian native, studying at the University of South Florida, was both verbally and physically abused over the photograph, which 25-year-old Eric Bretz considered to have been too revealing. After the man had become argumentative and jealous, he allegedly took Gentz's cell phone, to which she responded by pushing him. Bretz then turned violent, throwing his girlfriend to the floor and strangling her with his legs before pulling out chunks of her hair and hitting her in the face with a bottle of wine. The victim eventually fled to the apartment building's lobby, where a doorman called the police. In the aftermath, Gentz posted pictures of her bruised and battered face to Instagram with the caption, "I won't hide the marks of my story because no woman should feel ashamed or feel blamed for being a victim of domestic violence." Bretz, the son of one of Brazil's wealthiest families, was arrested on a charge of felony domestic battery by strangulation, to which he pleaded not guilty after his attorney indicated that he was eager to prove his innocence. He was released from custody on $60,000 bail, agreeing to a restraining order that prohibited him from making any form of contact with Gentz. The following month, the latter released audio clips that she claimed had come from the night of their altercation. In the recordings, she could be heard crying while a man believed to be Bretz screamed, "Why are you so dumb?" and "You do not accept the man who has more dominance than you." As of recent updates, the case's legal proceedings hadn't yet reached a conclusion. Number 3. Brett Walker. At around midday on July the 9th of 2022, police were called to a home in Nowra on the south coast of New South Wales after receiving reports of a domestic violence incident. Upon their arrival, officers found 25-year-old Skye Cruikshank bleeding profusely from the neck, and she was then rushed to St. George Hospital, where her condition was stabilized. The woman had reportedly been viciously attacked by her abusive partner, 27-year-old Brett Walker, who was still brandishing a large knife when police came on the scene. He threatened the officers before charging towards them, at which point he was fatally shot by law enforcement. When paramedics arrived, they performed CPR on him, but he was ultimately pronounced dead a short time later. Cruikshank's brother-in-law also sustained minor injuries during the altercation after attempting to intervene on her behalf, and he was taken to Shoalhaven Hospital in the aftermath. It was reported that the woman was set to be discharged from the hospital a few days after the incident occurred. The ill-fated couple had initially gotten together the previous month, shortly after Walker had been released from prison in Victoria and moved to the Shoalhaven area. Today's topic was inspired by Lacey Craig. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Charlotte Dotson. Englishwoman Charlotte Dotson, a drug addict with a documented personality disorder, subjected her boyfriend to a harrowing campaign of domestic abuse over the course of their 4-year relationship. Between May of 2018 and July of 2021 alone, Manchester police received a total of 12 calls about Dotson, inflicting violence against Mohammed Mukhtar. She allegedly assaulted him on a regular basis, often using weapons such as knives, and had even caused him to be hospitalized twice. Although Dotson was arrested on 3 separate occasions, Mukhtar would either lie to protect the abusive woman or refuse to support a prosecution each time the authorities became involved. The couple's tempestuous relationship was brought to an appalling and violent conclusion. In August of 2021, 25-year-old Dotson reportedly bound her gentle and vulnerable partner to a sofa using electrical cables wrapped around his hands, feet, and neck. She proceeded to humiliate Mukhtar even further by sending a picture of him tied up to another would-be lover, which was followed by a slew of sadomasochistic messages. Hours later, Dotson called her father to tell him that Mukhtar was no longer breathing. He urged her to contact emergency medical services, but she refused and instead left the house. After the police conducted a welfare check on Mukhtar on August the 30th, they came upon his bound body and he was ultimately pronounced dead at the scene. Dotson was arrested shortly thereafter and later pleaded guilty to murder, for which she was jailed for life, with a minimum term of 22.5 years before she could be considered for conditional release. Number 1. Catherine Knight. In February of 2000, an Australian couple's already tumultuous relationship grew even more tenuous following a series of domestic assaults, which culminated with Catherine Knight stabbing her boyfriend, John Price, in the chest. The man consequently kicked Knight out of the house and took out a restraining order against her, seeking to keep her away from both him and his children. On February the 29th, Price reportedly told his co-workers that if he didn't come to work the following day, it would be because Knight had killed him. That night, the woman visited his house while he was sleeping and took a shower before waking him up to have intimate relations. A neighbor became concerned the next morning after seeing Price's car still in the driveway. The police were alerted when the neighbor found blood on the front door, and after breaking in through the back of the house, officers came upon Price's mutilated body as well as Knight, comatose from a large number of pills. The bloody scene was the reported aftermath of a gruesome killing carried out by Knight. During the course of the previous night, she'd stabbed her ex-boyfriend with a butcher knife, and although he attempted to escape, his wounds ultimately proved too severe and he bled out. Several hours later, the sadistic woman skinned, decapitated, and dismembered Price's remains before cooking parts of his body to serve alongside baked potato, pumpkin, beetroot, zucchini, cabbage, yellow squash, and gravy. Knight allegedly planned to serve the man's organs to his children the following night. The woman initially offered to plead guilty to a reduced charge of manslaughter but was rejected. Despite refusing to accept responsibility for her actions, Knight ultimately pleaded guilty to murder and was consequently sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, the first Australian woman to receive such a punishment. Thanks for watching. Would you rather go on a date with a serial killer or have a list of your belongings distributed to all known burglars in the area? Let us know in the comments section below.